Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the channel. Today we take a look at my dual rectifier Roadster combo. Alright, most of y'all know this channel and me as a person is mostly geared towards contemporary, modern high gain stuff. That's what I like. Obviously, the KSR Artemis is my favorite amp of all time. You're going to hear some of that in this video today. Stuff like the Dover DA20 I really love, but I've had some Fortin stuff on this channel and everything. This here Roadster is going to be one of the more widely available metal amps that I've had on this channel. And I'm glad to have that be the case, because I'm really enjoying it. The first time I played a Roadster, it was a head that I came across in Guitar Center. This was back when the Air Nebula Advanced Overdrive first was released. I ran that overdrive pedal through a Roadster head and I was blown away. It just felt and kind of sounded, mostly felt, way different than the amps I played before. That was my first time playing through a rectifier of any kind. The word that comes to mind is chewy. I know it's tough to explain sound and the feel of an amp, but anyone who's played a rectifier will probably have some idea what I mean by that. But regardless, that boosted Roadster sound had been stuck in my head ever since that day. And since getting the KSR Artemis, which to me covers every facet, particularly of modern, but all metal, that I could ever really want, now I'm far more interested in digging into things that are just different. And for me, a rectifier definitely fits that bill. So today we're going to just play around with the Roadster and jump back and forth between it and my KSR Artemis to kind of try and demonstrate what that rectifier thing is. I'm going to both dial in sounds without an overdrive, and then we're going to use 3 of these overdrives that I have down here. The KSR Arrows, the Highway Notification Direwolf, and the Air Parallel Overdrive V2. Cab-wise, you're hearing both of these amps go through the PRS MT15 1x12, which is mic'd up with an SM58 and an SM57, and the cab itself on the Roadster, which is mic'd up with the SE Electronics XR1 ribbon mic. Let's get into it. Alright, so yeah, here we go. We're going to start on the Roadster with no boosts on it first. Let me demonstrate something to you first. So the Roadster has 3 modes at the front. Raw, which is kind of a crunchy type of deal, and then it has Vintage and Modern. So to my ears, Modern adds more bass and more gain. That tends to be what I go for when I am going to use a drive pedal. And that really gets that boosted rectifier sound to me. Now, I'm going to use Vintage here when I'm not using overdrive, because it cuts out some of that low end and to me tightens up the response a little bit. Cuts out a little bit of gain, but you can just add that back in. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to have it on, well, first of all, I'm going to go back and forth between Vintage and Modern just so you hear what that sounds like. So yeah, I actually think it's fairly obvious when I went from Vintage to Modern. Like I said, the Modern is more bassy and gain heavy, where the Vintage is a little reined in. So I'm going to use the Vintage sound, the Vintage mode, and jump back and forth between that and the KSR Artemis for a little bit. Here we go. Starting on the Vintage mode of the dual rec. yeah, just like that, hopefully you can kind of hear that the Artemis is just, even with the dual rec in its vintage mode, the Artemis just has a tighter low end response. And yeah, honestly, I think they both sound good. I could definitely use this unboosted even for modern stuff, but the Artemis definitely just covers that a little bit better. Let's go ahead and turn on some overdrives and dial in some sounds with those now. Alright, so now we're going to use those same sounds that we just used, and we're going to dial in some overdrives around. Well, we're going to dial in the we're going to dial the amps in, but starting from where we just were. So let's go ahead and start with the KSR Arrows, which is kind of dialed in to be the most subtle of the three overdrives we have down here. Here's the Artemis. Quite nice, as per usual. Let's jump over to the Roadster. I'm going to keep it on vintage mode first. To my ears, it just instantly took that very well. So let's jump back and forth between the Rectifier and between the Roadster and the Artemis, just like that real quick. And now let's go ahead and jump to the modern mode on the Roadster. Alright, yeah, super cool. So as you can see, when I go to modern mode on the Roadster, I get a little bit of a volume increase, so I kind of threw off my levels just now, but whatever. So yeah, and that kind of underlines my point here. The Artemis is just by its nature a tighter, more modern amp, but once you throw a boost in front of it, the Roadster does some super, super cool stuff that the Artemis, I don't think, can exactly emulate. They're both their own things. But that said, now let's just go ahead and focus directly in on the Roadster and use these other two boosts that I have down here, which are both in more extreme settings, which I can, of course, get to work with the Artemis, but we can say that for another video or something. So, just Roadster from this point on. I've been really digging the sound of getting out of the hybrid amplification direwolf lately, and I think it just complements this amp amazingly. But yeah, now let's jump over to the Parallel Overdrive, the Aerospec Parallel Overdrive V2 real quick as well. Alright, and there we go. So as you can probably see, I'm just having a phenomenal time messing with this amp. I had the gain up there a little higher than I would have liked for some of that towards the, well, for part of that. But ultimately, it still sounded great, in the room at least. Hopefully that came through the mic well. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please subscribe to the channel. What's coming up? Quad Cortex. Hopefully it'll be here this week. If not this week, it looks like it'll be here next week. So I'm very excited about that. I'm excited to create a whole bunch of content on it. And, you know, both free and paid captures for all these amps that I have here. But yeah, you guys take care.